Hello, my name is Abby, and this is my first YouTube video on bearded dragon care, specifically bearded dragons who have gout. I do have my little sidekick here. His name is Smaug, and he's a 4-year-old bearded dragon. And Smaug and I have been through quite the journey rehabilitating him from gout. He used to be a very lethargic bearded dragon, very poor diet, very painful. Like, you could tell that his arms were in pain and that he had trouble walking, and overall just like a very unhealthy bearded dragon. And we really thought that we were going to lose him because of gout, which we didn't necessarily catch until he was in my care, I would say, for about 2 months. And now, as you can tell, he's very rambunctious, very energetic, and very healthy. He has a very diverse diet. He loves trying new foods. He loves basking, and he loves just being a part of, our family. And he loves hanging out with the people. He loves running, and it's just really great to see. So this video is just sharing our journey with gout, how we rehabilitated Smaug, and how he's doing now, and some long-term care that you can do for your bearded dragon with gout. So I will mention that this wasn't an easy process. We got Smaug on January 26, 2018, and I would say it was about the end of 2018, November or December, that we really started to see substantial payoff for our hard work in rehabilitating him. So if you do have a bearded dragon that you think is suffering from gout, I would say it's important that you really stick out the treatment and really are focused and active in the rehabilitation, because yes, you absolutely can rescue your bearded dragon from gout, and they'll be happy and very thankful that you did it for them. So without further ado, I think I'll hop right into it. Before I do, I just wanted to mention that this is the only video that I've ever done in my life. So please forgive me if the sound and the camera, excuse me. Okay. Please forgive me if the sound and the camera is a little bit off. I don't have a microphone. I don't have a light. I'm just using my my phone. So I think I'm gonna put Smaug away just because my cat is in the frame, and I don't like them interacting. And then when I come back, we'll hop right into it. All right, so Smaug is back in his enclosure and we can hop back into it. So as I was saying before, I got Smaug on January 26th of 2018. I think this backstory is a little bit important to his journey just because I wasn't Smaug's first owner. I got Smaug as an adult from somebody off of Kijiji, which is basically like the Canadian Craigslist. So I'm perusing Kijiji, just looking at ads, and I see this ad for a free bearded dragon. And I'm always been like a proponent of not giving away reptiles for free, just because people will hop on a free reptile and then they won't be prepared to take it in. So they'll pick up this free bearded dragon, and there will have no enclosure. They won't know what to do with the lighting. They won't know that the beardie needs calcium. They won't know that the beardie needs a diverse diet. They'll put their bearded dragon on like sand or substrate, which isn't good for them. It can cause impaction. So when I saw this ad, I just thought, I'm gonna offer some money for this bearded dragon, and I'm gonna go pick him up. So I talked to my roommate at the time, and we decided to pick him up for $200, including his enclosure. And we start heading over there. The guy said yes, so we go. So when we get there, it was pretty clear that the setup that Smaug had maybe wasn't the best. The lighting was correct, and his previous owner was giving him calcium and D3. However, the diet was really off. I remember inquiring about what Smaug liked to eat, so that I would be able to kind of replicate that at my house. And basically his old owner said, I've just been feeding him carrots and superworms. And carrots, they're not awful for bearded dragons, but they're not the best. Bearded dragons need leafy greens, like collard greens, for example, and they just can't survive off of carrots and superworms. But at the time I was just thinking like, okay, well, what I'll do is I'll bring Smaug home and I'll just change the diet when we get home. So I take Smaug home, and little did I know at the time that Smaug was a very picky eater. And because she was so used to this diet of superworms and carrots, it was impossible to get her to eat anything else. So I offered her a variety of different kinds of vegetables that were really good for her. I offered her a variety of like different kind of proteins like crickets, even some fruits that I thought she would like, and she simply did not eat any of them. What she liked to eat was superworms. Just superworms all day and superworms all night. And I personally knew that she was going to need some source of calcium and D3, so I gave her the superworms that were kind of doused with that calcium and D3. But I did notice after bringing her home that she was very lethargic. I was kind of thinking maybe there was something up with her lighting, so I did end up getting her a new UVA and UVB bulbs just to make sure that the bulbs were still working. I put her on a timer. I was trying to change up her diet as much as possible, but I guess the big thing to note there was that she just would not eat anything that was healthy for her. And I did start getting very worried because as a bearded dragon, you can't survive off of superworms. So although I was giving her the superworms because she needed to eat something, I knew that this probably wasn't going to be like a sustainable diet. A couple of the symptoms that I was noticing were starting to get worse as the time went on. So she was becoming more lethargic. She would only want to eat the superworms, and she would only start kind of moving if there was a superworm offered to her. Even though I was offering her salad, it would just go completely untouched. So I kind of was thinking, okay, metabolic bone disease is what it is. Metabolic bone disease is a very common issue in bearded dragons, and because that was what was all over the internet, I just thought metabolic bone disease, which in hindsight, I actually don't think that was the right thinking, just because there was nothing really to indicate metabolic bone disease. Her lighting was fine. Her enclosure was big enough. She was getting enough calcium and D3, so it really just didn't, in hindsight, I would have said, okay, yeah, this can't be metabolic bone disease. But she started getting more and more lethargic, and then I started noticing that her front left claw was starting to swell. So I was just thinking, is this metabolic bone disease? Or I was thinking, oh my God, does she have an abscess? I do have 2 cats. And so I was thinking, did they have some sort of interaction? Did the cat scratch him? What's going on? So after witnessing Smaug's health decline more and more, I noticed she was getting more lethargic. I noticed that she was starting to refuse food more. And then the pivotal moment was that she started refusing superworms. And I do believe that it was because she was just in so much pain that she just simply did not want to eat at all, even her favorite foods. And at that point, I was thinking, this is way above my pay grade. I got to take this bearded dragon to a vet. So I hunted around in my area for an exotic pet vet. And where I live in Edmonton, there isn't a lot of options for exotic vets. And primarily, they specialize in birds. So I did end up hunting around and finding a vet that I could take Smaug to, and she was comfortable seeing Smaug. So my roommate and I, we hopped in the car with her and we rushed over to this clinic to get kind of her expertise on the subject. And the first thing that she said when she saw Smaug was, oh, this is metabolic bone disease. So she started asking me about the lighting situation. She started asking me if Smaug was getting enough vitamins. She started asking me if Smaug was on substrate, if Smaug was basking enough, if she had proper bulbs, etc. And I said, yeah, she has all of those things. And because of that, the vet said, I don't know if it's metabolic bone disease then. I think it might be something else. And I said, well, what could it possibly be? What would be causing these swollen extremities? What would be causing her to be so lethargic? And the vet said, what I think it is I think it might be either an abscess and her arms are swollen because there's so much fluid in there, or it might be gout. And I had heard about gout before, and I've known humans who have suffered from gout. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, actually, I think it could be gout. And she started asking me more about Smaug's diet. And I said, Smaug's diet is primarily superworms. She's very picky. And because I didn't want her to starve to death, I was feeding her the superworms over the 2 months that I've had her. And the vet said, gout is a buildup or an excess of uric acid in the extremities or the body in general, and usually that is from too much protein in one's diet. And that was kind of when a light bulb kind of went off for both of us, and we decided, you know what we're going to do is we're going to test for gout, and we're going to see if she probably or possibly has gout. So what ended up happening was Smaug actually went under general anesthetic so that the vet could take a biopsy of her arm. Something that was kind of interesting, I guess, overall, just because I never knew that bearded dragons could actually go under general anesthetic, but she did, and she came out of it a little bit groggy, but still alive, still kicking. And what they found when they took that biopsy was that there was actually no fluid in her arm. So it couldn't be an abscess because there just was no fluid there. So they sent this biopsy off and tested it, and it ended up coming back positive for uric acid. And that was when we thought, okay, no, this is probably gout. So what are we going to do to help her when she's so picky about her diet? Because the best thing that you can do for somebody or a bearded dragon that has gout is change up their diet completely and ensure that they are not getting such an influx of protein. So basically the vet said, come back in 3 days and I'm going to research this and I'm going to have some sort of medication that you can give Smaug. And for now, what I want you to do is I want you to stop giving her the superworms. So I did. I stopped giving her the superworms, and I also started researching kind of holistic methods of fixing bearded dragons that might have gout. I went on the pamperedbeardies.com and just searched gout, and I found a lot of other people that were suffering or that had bearded dragons that were suffering from gout. In 3 days, I went back to the vet, and she had gotten me this, which is called Allopurinol. Allopurinol is a gout medication that she wanted me to give Smaug daily. This was specifically prescribed to us from her vet, and the dosage is in accordance with what Smaug's weight is. So you can give too little or too much of allopurinol, which is why the weight of your bearded dragon matters so much. So what she told me to do for Smaug was give her, using this kind of syringe thing, was give her 0.23 milliliters orally every single day. And this allopurinol was supposed to help break down that uric acid and help her arms kind of get their mobility back a little bit. So I started with that. Every single day I was giving Smaugy allopurinol. And the way that I do it is I just fit this syringe, like I put the medicine in and I fit the syringe kind of along the side of her mouth, and then she'll open it a little bit and then I move it forward and then I just administer it and she will eat it right away. It's definitely not difficult, and of course a necessary kind of thing that you have to do when you have a bearded dragon that has gout. The next thing that I did was I was researching kind of holistic methods of what to do with a bearded dragon with gout, and I found black cherry concentrate. So black cherry concentrate is something that humans can get take, I guess, when they have gout. And I would give her a tiny, tiny little bit, like probably about, I would say about 0.1 milliliters mixed with about 0.3 milliliters of water, because this is very sugary, but it does help break down the uric acid. So I would give her that every second day or so. And that would be kind of my medicinal intervention for Smaug. So while she was under general anesthetic, they also took an x-ray of her, which I'm going to try to insert here or somewhere around this kind of vicinity. If you can tell from this picture, especially the top left claw, it's very swollen. Around her little skeleton, there should be an outline of the swollen extremities. So you can really see how swollen they were in comparison to her skeleton. Something really interesting that I thought I would share, just because who actually gets a chance to see the x-ray of a bearded dragon? So once I noticed that she was starting to walk around and she seemed like she was feeling a little bit better, I decided to really tackle her diet, which I think I should have done before immediately as I got her, because I think it probably would have saved me a lot of grief, and it probably would have saved her a lot of grief. However, you know, again, hindsight is 2020. So this was kind of my opportunity to really tackle the diet. As I mentioned to you before, she loves superworms. She was definitely not going to refuse superworms. However, I was not going to give them to her as often as I initially was. I was very focused at the time on getting her to a normal diet level. She would not eat vegetables no matter what. Even the carrots she was beginning to refuse. So what I actually ended up doing was hand feeding her baby food. I have an example of kind of the baby food that I was using, which is this Heinz. And this is butternut squash, and butternut squash is like a pretty good feeder for a bearded dragon. And what I would do is I would take a little stick and I would dip it into the butternut squash and I would put it on her mouth, and she would just kind of lick it off of her mouth. And that was how she would get the nutrients that she needed. She desperately needed these nutrients. And I did this with butternut squash baby food. I did this with peas baby food. I did this with carrot baby food. And I also did this with mixed up collard greens. So I'd blend the collard greens with some water. I would blend some other leafy greens that were good for her with water, but she was predominantly surviving off of blended foods that I would hand feed her every single day. And, you know, I wasn't really necessarily offering salad at that time just because it didn't seem like she had any interest in it yet. But, you know, still, I was giving her the nutrients that she needed. I would also be administering, again, the Allopurinol. I would be administering the black, concentrated black cherry. And that was pretty much her diet for a couple months there. And so after a few months, I could see that she was acting very normal, and I noticed, and I was so happy about this, was that the swelling in her back legs had actually gone down. She wasn't showing any swelling at all. So that was awesome. I was really excited about that. And because I was seeing such good progress in her, I decided I was going to offer her some salad. And if anybody knows beardies, you know, like, one of the things that's not necessarily good for them, but something that they do enjoy eating is actually iceberg lettuce. So I thought, you know, like, I'm just going to try some iceberg lettuce and just see if she'll take it, right? And she did. She immediately took iceberg lettuce. And I think this was probably the first time that I'd ever actually seen her eat a vegetable that wasn't carrots. And I was so excited at that point. I thought, oh my God, this is like the sign of serious progress here. Like, even though iceberg lettuce isn't the best thing in the whole world, she's eating it. I'm happy. So what I did was I went out to the store and I did buy some collard greens just to see if she would take them. I made her a salad with some blueberries, collard greens, some spaghetti squash, and then some calcium and D3, and I gave it to her. And miraculously, she started eating it. And I think at this point it was probably about summer. So it had been about like 5 or 6 months that I hadn't seen her eating anything other than baby food, superworms, and carrots. And that was just like the pivotal moment. I thought, oh my God, like, she's rehabilitating. She's starting to get healed, which was awesome. And I was feeling really good about it. I took her back to the vet. The vet said, yes, I see some progress here too. We think that you should continue on with the allopurinol, and whatever you're doing, it seems to be working. So I did, and about November, I would say, of 2018 was when I think she was about symptom-free from gout. And of course, like, I want to mention that I wasn't not feeding her protein, so instead I would just change and I would feed her the feeders once a week instead of multiple times a week. So she was still getting the calcium that she needed. She was still getting the protein that she needed. She just wasn't necessarily getting so much in excess that it was causing her problems. And I was really excited. I was really happy. I was honestly, truly really worried that we would lose her because it was just getting so bad. It was getting to that point. So this was just awesome. I was really excited. I was really happy. And I think, it was probably about December of 2018 that we really noticed, like, okay, this is a changed beardie. She used to be very lethargic, and all she would do was kind of bask and stand around, and she started running, like truly running around. And it was so nice to see. We were really happy. And then the last time that I took her to the vet was kind of for her, sorry, I have a hair, was kind of for her final checkup. And in this final checkup, even the vet was impressed with her progress. And that was basically the last checkup, and we were really excited and we were happy to kind of move on with our lives. In terms of the allopurinol, we were still kind of told to administer the allopurinol at least once a week, and that is because gout, it never really goes away. You can diminish the symptoms to a point, but if we ever got lazy with her diet, or if we ever kind of stopped caring for her properly or did the proper or improper husbandry, it's very possible that the gout could come back, which is not something that we want. So that's basically it. All right, so that's pretty much it, which is why I decided to bring Smaugy back into the video, just so that you guys can say goodbye, and also so that you guys can just see how awesome she's doing. She looks like a completely normal, completely happy, completely healthy beardie. She's got a full tail, her little legs completely normal, not swollen at all, her arms not swollen at all, and she's just looking awesome. I'm very proud of her progress, and I'm really proud of just us in this journey in general, because it was tough. Again, like I said, it took about a year for us to fully rehabilitate her back to full health, you know, and it took a lot of work and a lot of action on our part. The vet bills, I would say it costed about $800 for her to go under general anesthetic, and for the allopurinol, and for the vet visit in general. So kind of costly, but definitely worth it, just because rehabilitating her means that she's going to be with us for a longer time. And she is only 4, so we can have a good decade with her. And that's really what we want, right? We want to provide this home for Smaugy that is really good, and just like a happy, healthy home for her, because she's a happy, healthy bearded dragon. And as you can see how she's kind of moving, she's trying to get away from me, but you can see how she has like the full mobility in her legs, and how she's able to walk, she's able to do everything, which is awesome to see, because she really wasn't able to do that before, because she was in so much pain from the gout. So a quick recap was that when we got Smaugy, she was subsisting off of carrots and superworms, and because of that, she ended up developing gout. We didn't diagnose this gout until I had her for about 2 months, and I took her to a vet. We thought it was metabolic bone disease at first, but she did end up going under general anesthetic. She's so cute. She's so cute. So she ended up going under general anesthetic, and when we found out that it wasn't an abscess, it wasn't metabolic bone disease, we knew it was gout, and we started treating for gout. The first thing that I did holistically was I got this black cherry concentrate. I give her about 1 milliliter for every 3 milliliters of water, and that I would give her at the time about every second day, and then it started becoming less and less as I started seeing the symptoms subside. The next thing that we did was more of the prescription medication intervention, which is allopurinol, which is specifically for gout, and it is prescribed to her based on her weight. So she specifically gets 0.23 milliliters per day. That's what she was getting at the beginning of her diagnosis. Your bearded dragon, if you are suffering, or if you do have a bearded dragon that's suffering with gout, might get a different dosage depending on what their weight is. So 0.23 milliliters might not work for you, but that's what worked for Smaug, and that's what worked for us. So she was getting that administered every single day, and then we really started tackling her diet, and we did that by hand feeding her baby food, which we fed her butternut squash, we fed her peas, and we fed her carrots. Additionally, we would blend collard greens and water, or we would just kind of blend some leafy greens that were good for her, and we would administer that by putting them on a stick, putting it on her little mouth. So I kind of have I'll use the back of the pencil. So we would, or actually, no, I'll use this. So we would dip it into the baby food, and we would just stick it on her little mouth, and she would lick it off. And that was basically how we would administer those like good nutrients that she needs from vegetables. And then we started noticing that the swelling was starting to go down, and she was starting to get a lot more energy. She was basking on her own. She was walking on her own. And so we thought, you know what we're going to do? We're going to try the salad. So the first type of leaf that we gave her was lettuce, iceberg lettuce, which isn't great for bearded dragons, but she wanted it and she took it. And that was probably the pivotal moment in her diet change, just because we knew that she would start eating salad at that point. So we ran to the grocery store, we got her collard greens, we got her squash, spaghetti squash, and We got her carrots, and we got her a couple of other things that we thought she would really like. I think blueberries were in there as well, and she started eating it. And that was when we knew, like, holy, this bearded dragon is rehabilitated, and she's gonna live a good life. And now in April of 2020, she is living her good bearded dragon life. She's very, very energetic. She's very rambunctious. And again, she's just part of our family. Ooh, look at her. She's trying to get away. She loves running on the table. So she wants me to let her run on the table. Anyway, that's basically it. And I would be here like in the comments section to answer any questions that you might have about bearded dragons and gout, anything about allopurinol, what it does, as well as how to get the best baby food, etc. Like, honestly, I'm totally an open book, and I'm definitely like down to help anybody else that might be dealing with a bearded dragon that has gout. So if you liked this video, leave me a comment. Hopefully it helped you. I know this was a lot of information that I really wanted when I first kind of was dealing with this kind of issue. And I hope that this can help you and help your bearded dragon as well. Thank you. Bye. Say bye-bye. Bye-bye. That's the bearded dragon's stink eye right there.